Some people didn't grow up, they built themselves, piece by piece, lesson by lesson, with no instruction manual and no one watching. They taught themselves to cook by burning the first 3 meals. They taught themselves to manage money by having none. They taught themselves how to handle heartbreak by going through it alone and taking notes on what to do differently next time. And the world looks at them and says, "You're so capable. You've got it all figured out." But the capability isn't a personality trait. It's armor. Every skill they built covers something they lost, a childhood where someone else was supposed to do the building. And underneath the competence is a grief most of them have never named, the grief of being your own parent before you were old enough to understand that that shouldn't have been your job. In this video, we follow one version of this person through 10 behaviors, not as a list, but as a thread. Because these habits don't exist separately, they're wrong. They're the biography of someone who had to raise the one person no child should have to raise, themselves. Let's name them. The self-raised person isn't always the child of absent parents. Sometimes the parents were present, but unavailable. Too depressed, too addicted, too overwhelmed, too young. Sometimes the household looked fine from the outside, but lacked the invisible infrastructure a child needs: guidance, modeling, emotional scaffolding. What defines this person isn't what happened to them. It's what they had to become in response. They became their own teacher, their own protector, their own reference point. They assembled a functional adult from spare parts without supervision and did it well enough that nobody thought to ask who helped. The answer, of course, is no one. And that's the part that stays with them, not the hardship, the aloneness of it. The competence they carry isn't confidence. It's the scar tissue of having done everything the hard way alone and never being allowed to do it any other way. Number 1, you taught yourself everything, from practical skills to emotional survival. There was no parent who sat you down and showed you how things work, how to do laundry, how to open a bank account, how to navigate conflict, how to process grief. You figured it out by watching, by failing, by Googling at 2 a.m., by asking friends' parents indirect questions so nobody would know yours weren't teaching you. And you carry that self-taught quality into adulthood. You're resourceful. You can learn anything. People admire it. But underneath the resourcefulness is a quiet ache. You never had someone hand you the map. You drew every map yourself. And sometimes you wonder what it would have felt like to have someone simply show you the way instead of having to find it alone. Number 2, you have a hard time accepting guidance from anyone, even people who know more than you. When someone offers advice, something in you resists. Not because you think you know better, but because the role of student feels foreign. You were never guided, you were the guide. So when someone tries to teach you something, your system doesn't file it under help. It files it under loss of control. This shows up in small ways. You'd rather struggle alone with something than ask a mentor. You rewrite instructions in your own words before you can follow them. You nod along but quietly rework everything your way once you're alone. Not because you're arrogant, but because your entire operating system was built on self-reliance, and accepting outside input feels like plugging in a foreign cable that doesn't quite fit. Number 3, you parent the people who were supposed to parent you. You check in on your mother more than she checks in on you. You manage your father's appointments, his moods, his relationship with the rest of the family. You became the emotional infrastructure of the household before your voice finished changing. And now, as an adult, you still carry them. Not out of obligation, but out of muscle memory. The self-raised child doesn't just fill the gap, they reverse the current. They become the adult in the relationship with their own parent. And the cruelest part is that it looks like love. People say, "You're such a good son. She's so devoted to her family." They don't realize the devotion was never optional. It was the only role available. Number 4, you were the mature one in every group at every age. At 12, you were giving advice that 20-year-olds struggled with. At 16, you were the friend everyone came to with their problems. At 20, you were already navigating life with the tired wisdom of someone decades older. People said you were old soul. What they meant was, You'd already been through things most adults hadn't, and it showed. But mature was never a compliment. It was a job title. You were mature because you had to be, because someone needed to hold steady, and you were the only candidate. And somewhere underneath all that early wisdom is a version of you that never got to be young, never got to be reckless, never got to make the kinds of mistakes that children are supposed to make while someone else catches them. Number 5. You don't ask for directions, literally and metaphorically. You'll drive in circles before you ask someone. You'll spend hours figuring something out alone before you reach out. The phrase, "Can you help me?" feels physically difficult to say, like pushing a sound through a throat that spent years training itself to be silent. This isn't stubbornness, it's training. You grew up without a help desk. The one time you asked, nobody answered. Or the answer came too late, or it came with conditions you couldn't meet. So you stopped asking. And now, figure it out yourself isn't a choice. It's a reflex so deep it feels like identity. You don't know how to be the person who receives help because you've only ever been the person who provides it. Number 6. You've built elaborate systems for running your life. Morning routines, self-care rituals, organizational infrastructure. Your calendar is meticulous. Your habits are engineered. You have a system for groceries, a system for finances, a system for managing your emotions, and it all works. Impressively. People ask how you stay so organized, and the real answer is because there was no one else to organize it for me. I had to build the machine myself. The systems aren't just tools, they're substitute parents. Your morning routine is the steady hand that was supposed to guide your mornings as a child. Your budget spreadsheet is the financial wisdom that was supposed to be taught, not invented. Every system you've built is a monument to a gap, something that should have been handed to you by someone who came before you and wasn't. Number 7. You're deeply suspicious of things that come easily, a job that goes smoothly, a relationship without drama, a gift without strings. When something arrives without struggle, your first instinct isn't gratitude, it's suspicion. Because in your experience, nothing came free. Everything costs something, and if you can't see the cost, you assume it's hiding. The self-raised person learned to earn everything: comfort, safety, love, stability. None of it was given. All of it was built. So when something is offered without effort, it doesn't register as generosity. It registers as a trap. And the sadness underneath is this: you can't receive ease because ease was never part of your original programming. You only trust what you've sweated for. Number 8. You feel genuine pride in your independence and a quiet devastation that lives right beside it. You've built something real, a life that works, a competence that's undeniable, and you should be proud because what you did was extraordinary. A child, unsupervised, built a functioning human life from the ground up. That's not small, but there's a grief braided into the pride. The grief says, I shouldn't have had to. I shouldn't have had to teach myself. I shouldn't have had to be this strong this young. The pride and the grief aren't opposites, they're roommates, and they live in the same part of your chest, taking turns making noise. The pride in the daytime, the grief at 2 a.m. when nobody's listening. Number 9. You're the caretaker for everyone in your life, and you physically resist when someone tries to do it for you. You're the one who remembers birthdays, shows up first, carries the emotional weight without being asked. But when someone turns the care around, when they bring you soup, or ask what you need, or try to hold something for you, you deflect. You minimize. You say, I'm fine so fast it barely counts as a sentence. This isn't ingratitude, it's disorientation. You've been on the giving end so long that receiving feels like standing on the wrong side of a counter. Your body doesn't know what to do with incoming care because the slot where it's supposed to land was never built. You learned to give because no one gave to you. And now the giving is the only direction your nervous system recognizes. Number 10, the one that ties the entire thread together, You grieve a childhood you ran but never got to have. You managed it. You survived it. You kept the house running, kept yourself fed, kept your grades up, kept everyone else stable, but you never got to be careless in it. You never got to be messy or confused or freely dependent on someone bigger and steadier than you. You were the bigger, steadier person, and you were 7. And now sometimes a moment catches you. You see a parent tying a child's shoe, a mother brushing a daughter's hair, a father explaining something patiently while a kid gets it wrong 3 times and nobody minds. And something in your chest tightens, not with anger, with longing, with the quiet recognition that this was supposed to be yours. And it wasn't. And no amount of competence can retroactively fill that space. That grief is real. It doesn't mean you failed. It means you succeeded at something no child should have had to succeed at. And it means the armor you built is extraordinary, but it was always too heavy for the person underneath it. If you followed this person from the first sign to the last and recognized them, I want you to hear this clearly. The competence you carry is real. It's yours. Nobody can take it from you. But it was never supposed to be the only thing you had. You were supposed to have someone beside you while you learned. Someone who caught you before you figured out how to catch yourself. That absence doesn't make you broken. It makes you someone who built something extraordinary under impossible conditions. And the grief you feel for what was missing isn't weakness. It's honesty. You're allowed to be proud and sad at the same time. You're allowed to honor the armor and also, slowly, start to set some of it down. At Inner Lens, we look at the strength and the wound in the same frame because they're always in the same frame. If this one stayed with you, the next video follows a different thread from the same root. The quiet signs you were only loved when you behaved. It's right here.